Hello and welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. Now, ahead of this weekend's game, we have another guest on the podcast this time. Unfortunately, not of the same calibre as Jimmy Constantopoulos, but a very good friend of mine nonetheless. And of course, he is on to preview this weekend's game against Coventry. Alex, how are you doing, mate?
Not bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. Still getting my head around the fact that we're in the same house but doing this on Zoom, but for probably the easiness of it, we've chosen to do it over Zoom. But quite daft really, considering you're about a floor below me. So
I think if I took my headphones out, I'd probably be able to hear you, to be fair. So
yeah, you probably would, to be honest. But we'll continue anyway and we'll get started. So Alex, of course I don't want to talk about it, I'm sure you do. To start off the preview, I'd just like to go back to earlier on this season, of course. I made the trip to the game and was looking forward to potentially getting some bragging rights at the Rico. Of course, that wasn't the case. Coventry ran out 2-0 winners. Just looking back to that, really, what did you make of Boro back then? Because a lot's changed since then, of course.
Well, I think we were deserved winners that day. I don't think anyone could really query that. I think, it took us a while to get the breakthrough, but when we did, we looked like we were going to hang on to it. And I don't think even the most ardent Middlesbrough fan could probably say that we deserved anything less than 3 points from that match. And I remember it was the time you'd signed all these new players, Hernandez, Saliki had just come in, and I was a bit worried ahead of the game, to be fair. And historically, we've always struggled against Neil Warnock sides, so I wasn't really hoping for much. But I think I predicted a win for us through blind loyalty on the last time I come on. But yeah, it was a deserved win for us. Obviously, a lot's changed now. Like I say, it's not really my club to say things like this, but I do think that it probably would have been, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I think if you'd have parted company with Neil Warnock at the end of last season, I think that probably would have been fair. And if you had Chris Wilder from August with a full pre-season and a summer to get who he wanted in, I think you'd probably be up there with the Bournemouths and the Fulhams and the Blackburns.
Yeah, obviously we'll get onto that later because, given that you are at Teesside Union, I force you to go to certain Middlesbrough games. You have seen a lot of Boro this season with Warnock and under Wilder. But as I say, we'll continue onto that slightly later. Just on Coventry, I remember at the time when obviously the game that we're speaking about at the Rico, of course, you won the game 2-0 and fairly convincingly. I don't think I could argue with what you've just said about you. Really, it took you a bit of time to get that opener, but as soon as you got it, I never really felt like Boro were going to get back into the game. Around about that time, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, Coventry had built up a real amount of sort of belief amongst the fan base. The league position was extremely healthy. You were in an incredible run of form. And, I think very quietly, there might have even been whispers about, could we even really compete with sort of the Bournemouths and the Fulhams of this league? Since then, there has been a slight drop-off, but by no means is your league, anything to be sort of snarled at. You're still in that playoff picture. What is the current sort of state of affairs in the Coventry squad, and how's the squad looking at the moment?
Well, I think I don't think any Coventry fan seriously expected us to maintain that start to the season. I was having a laugh and a joke at the time about Operation Premier League, as I was calling it. But in all seriousness, I think we had a brilliant start, but I didn't expect us to be competing around the top two. But it's as a club, as a set of supporters, what we've put up with through the last 10 or so years before all this, playing home games in two different cities. We're just enjoying the ride, to be honest. There's no real expectation. We've said after Christmas, really, if we push on and if we were to break into the playoffs, that's absolutely amazing. But there's no real expectation to do that, so we can. I don't think there's any. it's mathematically possible. I don't think there's any chance we're going to be sucked into a relegation battle, even if we did go on a disastrous run of form. So I think we'll just play the second half of the season out, enjoying our football, really. In terms of the squad, it's a little bit thin at the minute. Todd Kane, who we signed from QPR, and I believe actually made his debut in the Middlesbrough match earlier in the season. He's been a really shrewd signing. He's one of them where we signed him from QPR, and I don't know if you've ever signed a player who's, the club he's come from. Their fans have absolutely rinsed him, and they were like, why have you signed him? But he's been probably make an argument for player of the season. He's been excellent, and he's injured at the minute. He was out of the game last night, so we've had to start young Josh Eccles at right back, who's naturally a central midfielder. So it's testament to the work Mark Robins is doing, that the squad, we haven't really got much depth, but we're managing to keep plugging away and keep in touch with the playoffs.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously Todd Kane there, another player that has recently signed for you in January as a sort of reinforcement. Jake Bidwell, very heavily linked with Middlesbrough at the start of the season, actually, and obviously that didn't work out for one reason or another. But I noticed he played last night. What have you made of him so far? Given
I haven't really
some games for Swansea at the start of this season.
I haven't really seen too much of him, to be honest. I didn't get to the match last night. Obviously, I watched every kick of it on the stream, and he looked solid enough. We kept a clean sheet. And I wasn't at the QPR match on Saturday either, which he come on for the last 20 minutes. So I can't really give too much of a judgment. But it seems when we did sign him that Swansea fans really seemed to rate him. Apparently, he was a bit of an integral part of their setup under Steve Cooper. But for whatever reason, under Russell Martin, he hasn't really been getting in the side. I think that's going to be our only January signing as well. We haven't really got much manoeuvrability in terms of money. We're not going to throw money at it. Well, we haven't got the money to throw at it, but yeah, I think it's a shrewd signing, and it's another gem that Mark Robins has found. Really, he keeps doing it. Todd Kane, he signed from QPR. Like I mentioned, he's been excellent. Ben Sheaf spent last season on loan from Arsenal, and we signed him for quite a healthy fee by our standards back in the summer. And again, he's made a claim for player of the season. Really, he's been excellent, much improved on last. Simon Moore, who we got on a free from Sheffield United, he's been immense in between the sticks. And Jake Clark-Salter from Chelsea was my man of the match last night. He's been a solid addition as well. So Mark Robins makes some brilliant signings, so I'm excited to see what Bidwell can do.
Yeah, and obviously Bidwell did play last night, of course. Last night's game against Stoke, you come out on top. Thanks to Victor Gyökeres. Have I battered that name there, or is that?
No, I've heard worse pronunciations. So.
Okay, so yeah, the Gyökeres goal wins the game for you last night. How big of a result was that, considering Stoke are sort of there or thereabouts and have been all season, really?
It was a big win, yeah. Obviously, it keeps us within touching distance of the playoff spots. It actually ups the stakes for Saturday as well, because if we win, we can go ahead of you, and we've still got games in hand to play against Cardiff and Luton, which were called off over Christmas because of the whole COVID situation. And it was a deserved 3 points as well. Obviously, I know you watched some of it with me, and I think we were by far the better side. Stoke looks really poor. In fact, I don't really recall them registering a shot on target, and it was a lovely finish as well. So it was a brilliant 3 points, and that was our first home win since November, believe it or not. So I think, whilst, like I said, there's not much expectation, frustrations were starting to grow a little bit. So it was good to get the win and maybe get our season back on track if we're going to break into the playoffs.
Yeah, but one man, obviously we spoke about Bidwell, who was into the team. One man who missed last night's game and will miss quite a few games. So I've seen your joint top goal scorer, Matty Godden. I don't think he actually played in the reverse fixture either, but he's since come into the team, scored 10, and I think that's level with Gyökeres at the moment, both of them on 10. How big of a miss will Godden be for not only this game, but for the time that he is out of your team?
Yeah, do you know what? It's really bad luck as well. because it wasn't a footballing injury. He said on Twitter that he was lying in bed one night and he just had unbearable stomach pains, and he rang the club doctor in the middle of the night apparently, and he was advised to get himself to hospital. And it turns out he had appendicitis. And I can't recall a footballer ever missing matches because of appendicitis. It seems quite a rare thing. Obviously, it's really frustrating because he's a brilliant striker. He's a poacher, and that's what the way we play. That's what we need. But obviously, his health needs to come first, and we really want him to get back as soon as he can. But we don't want to rush it either, because having your appendix out is apparently a very serious operation. So yeah, I think just recover and then get him back, and we need other strikers to step up to the plate in the meantime.
Yeah, that leads me quite nicely onto my next question, to be honest, because one man who scored, of course, in the reverse fixture, and who we spoke about actually in the last preview, Martin Waghorn, will probably replace him in the team, to be honest, at the weekend. On Waghorn, I know I said this last time, it's one of those players in the Championship, especially where I always feel that he's just really on song against Middlesbrough, and stats might not even back that up, but I know he scored against us a couple of times for Ipswich, of course. He scored against us in the reverse fixture. As I said, although Girakes probably takes more plaudits because of the goal return that he has this season, what does Martin Waghorn offer this Coventry team, and what sort of threat will he pose at the weekend again against Middlesbrough?
Well, believe it or not, if memory serves me correct, I actually think the Middlesbrough game at home was the last time Martin Waghorn played before recently, because he's been kept out. I think he had a heel injury or something like that. I can't remember what injury it was. So I think he just must really like playing against Middlesbrough, because he's got himself back to fitness just in time. But I really like Martin Waghorn. He gets a lot of stick from some of our fans because he's got one goal to his name. But if you watch the match and the work he does off the ball, he supplements Gyökeres so well, and to the point where I think he brings him up to another level. He does so much tracking back. Some of the balls he can play from deep positions are excellent, and then he can dart up the pitch. He's just a really hard grafter, and I think he's going to be a big player to us, a big player for us towards the end of the season.
Yeah, obviously, as I say, Waghorn, me and Nathan have a laugh about it most weeks on the podcast, that in the Championship especially, there's always certain players, we spoke about Andy Carroll before the Reading game, over the years, Robert Earnshaw, players like that, where...
Ours is Lyle Taylor, mate. Lyle Taylor for Forest, he always seems to score against us, so...
Yeah, there's always that one, isn't there, where you just think every time he seems to turn up, and I'm hoping he doesn't, but it does worry me a little bit that Waghorn is likely to be in the team, because as I say, he just seems to turn up against Middlesbrough, and he's obviously got himself fit just for the occasion. Just going back onto Middlesbrough, actually, we spoke about Warnock and the game earlier on this season, and similar to probably a few of the performances under Neil Warnock earlier this season, we didn't really give a great account of ourselves, and I think performances like that are the reason he ultimately was sacked. You, of course, as I've said, have seen probably a fair bit of Middlesbrough, considering you don't actually support the club. What have you made since, obviously, the departure of Warnock and the addition of Chris Wilder? What have you seen that's the difference from games that you've watched?
Well, I think Warnock is one of football's amazing characters, really. I think, I don't think there's one football fan out, well, or maybe Birded that badly. I think there's a majority of football fans out there who would like to see him in the game instead of out of it. But like I mentioned earlier, I think, he come in when you were in a complete shambles, really, under Jonathan Woodgate. He did a job, kept you up, deserved the crack at his, record promotion. I think it would have been last season. But I just think, that from what I saw of Middlesbrough last season, he seemed to kind of peter out towards the end. So I think it probably would have been wise to part company last summer. But, obviously you decided not to. And then you get rid. And I thought Chris Wilder was such a shrewd appointment. I really rate Chris Wilder as a manager. I think he's the type of manager that players would absolutely run through brick walls for, which, you can't go wrong with that. And his track record, obviously getting Sheffield United from League One into the Championship, then into the Premier League. And even away from that, he got Oxford out of the conference into League Two. Northampton, who were, on the brink of going into extinction when he was there, he got them up as well against the tide. So I think he's an excellent manager, and I think he's just what you needed.
Yeah, obviously he's had a good start to life as Boro manager. The first real, possibly the second, given the Preston result, but we weren't sort of up and running under Wilder in his first two games. Of course, we've had momentum since then. And the first real blip, ironically, was actually a game that you attended with myself.
Yeah.
We both went to Blackburn. To be honest, it was, I think, more through your boredom of dragging me to the game, as it sounds, that we attended. Last minute decision. We, of course, went. And, I've spoke about it on social media this week. My record of attending away games is, drastically becoming a real problem, to be honest, for myself. But, Monday night's game at Blackburn, you were obviously in the crowd. You watched us up close and personal. I know you were impressed with Blackburn, but what do you think our downfall was there? Because up until Blackburn, we had sort of, although we'd been scoring late goals, looked like a complete different team to Monday night.
Well, first of all, just to touch on Monday night, I'm a Coventry fan, but a football fan second as well. And if there's a football game on that's within reason, being able to get to, I don't object to going. And I thought £12 was an excellent price for a top of the table Championship clash. So I said let's go because I thought it'd be a really decent game as a neutral. And I think I was more impressed with Blackburn than I was disappointed with Middlesbrough, if that makes sense. I think they're a really, really good side, Blackburn. I like the way they play. And it was one of them where I just think the better side won.
Yeah.
I think your downfall was probably you had at 1.5 strikers on the pitch and you didn't really look like scoring a goal through any of them. Your lads, Matt Crooks, looked the most likely to score, if anyone. I thought I don't really want to say anything because I'm sure it'll come back to bite me on the backside if one of them goes and scores on Saturday. But I thought the lad from Brighton, Connolly, I didn't really think he offered much. Obviously, he'd probably go and score on Saturday. Now I've said that.
I'm ready to clip him if he does, Alex. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm expecting it. Don't worry. But I was really impressed with Jones. I thought he's an excellent player. And I think I'm a massive fan of Dale Fry as well. I think he's an excellent centre half for this level. And, if Middlesbrough don't push on and get into the Premier League soon, I think he will.
Yeah. I think, given the result on Monday, it makes it, as you're saying, given Coventry's result last night, it makes the game all the bigger, really, because, I think it's 2 points that you are currently behind us. You have a game in hand, as you mentioned, so a win would take you above us, and then you've got that extra game to even potentially go on and push even further into them playoff positions. Onto the game on Saturday, really, what kind of game are you expecting?
I think if a neutral was watching it, I think it would be a good game for them to watch. I think, I like Chris Wilder's style of play, which going back to Monday night, I do think at times was your downfall. I think you probably tried to overplay too much, but there's not a lot wrong with that. You're trying to play football the right way, and it's not always going to work, is it? So, and we play some really neat stuff as well. So I think it'll be a decent match for a neutral to watch. I think it'll be tight, and I honestly, I'm not even saying this to not, potentially not jinx myself, but I all sit on the fence, but I'm struggling to call it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you what you would be happy with coming to the Riverside, given that we've been, pretty solid of late under Chris Wilder, especially. And I mentioned earlier that blip early on against Preston, but since then at home, I don't think we've been beaten actually under Chris Wilder. So, earlier in the season, I think if you'd have come to the Riverside, you could have potentially, quite fancied yourself to come and nick a result. But given the position and the magnitude of the game, what kind of result would you be looking at and thinking, yeah, probably take that on Saturday?
I'd snap your hand off for a point. I'd be completely content with that. We never get anything at the Riverside anyway. I think there's that weird stat that we've never won at the Riverside and you've never won at the Rico. That has got to change at one point, but whether it's Saturday, I don't know.
Yeah, I really hope not, because, that could make the rest of my weekend and probably the week after, given that we are living in the same house, pretty painful, considering you'll have double the bragging rights from earlier on this season. Just to wrap it up, Alex, I know you probably don't want to, and I normally shy away from giving them because it normally comes back to bite me on the backside as well. But if you were to give a prediction for the game, result and goal scorers, what would you be leaning towards?
Do you know what? I'm not going to predict us to lose, but I don't think we'll win. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw with Middlesbrough to go 1-0 up through Andras Spera, and we will equalise through none other than Martin Waghorn.
Yeah, it would be perfect for Waghorn, for Coventry and for himself to get his second goal of the season, I think, in his first appearance since Middlesbrough, against Middlesbrough. And I mean, we've covered him on this podcast. And, I think I've told you before, me and Nathan have quite the track record of mentioning specific players and them going and scoring against us the weekend after. So, yeah, that would continue that theme. But Alex, thank you very much for coming on. I know either way, it'll certainly be an interesting game, given the earlier result in the season, giving off, I'm saying friendship, as soon as that referee blows his whistle on Saturday, I'm sure that'll be out the window for
definitely.
But, all in good spirits. Hopefully Boro can bounce back from that result against Blackburn. And, as much as you are my mate, Alex, I hope we smash you. So thank you very much again, Alex.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you very much. And that wraps up the Coventry City preview. So be sure to leave a comment on YouTube about your predictions for the game. Do subscribe to the channel as well for more videos like this and podcasts as usual. Mine and Nathan's weekly podcast will be out probably on Monday night. So there's that to look forward to as well. But from me and Alex, that has been another episode of the Bropolis podcast. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.